Hello, my name is Emma, and in today's video, I am going to teach you some key expressions you can use when somebody tells you something that's not true and you want to argue against what they're saying. So in this video, I'm going to teach you these great expressions, but before I do that, we're going to talk about 3 words that are very common in English these days. Those 3 words are fake news, conspiracy theories, and hoaxes. So in this video, you will learn what these words mean, and you will also learn what to say to somebody that tells you something that's not true. All right, so let's get started. So I have here 3 sentences. The first sentence is, scientists say the Earth is flat, not round. Is this true or not true? Okay, this sentence is not true. Some people believe this, but it is not true. My second sentence, Michael Jackson is alive and living as Kim Kardashian. True or not true? Again, we have a sentence that is not true. I made this up. And finally, my third sentence, listening to rock music causes cancer. Is this true or untrue? Again, this is untrue. I also made up this. So my point here is that a lot of what you hear from people in conversation is not true. People say these types of things all the time, and you will know that this is something that's not true. So what do you say when someone tells you that the Earth is flat? Or they tell you that Michael Jackson is living as Kim Kardashian? Okay, so I will teach you those great expressions you can use. Before I do that, I wanted to just say that these 3 sentences can also be considered fake news. So we will look at the meaning of fake news in a moment. Okay, so the 3 main words I wanted to teach you today are words that you will see a lot on the internet and in the media. The first word is fake news. So what is fake news? Well, fake means not true. Fake news is news stories that are not true, and they're created to damage a person, a business, an agency, or a government. Or they might also be created to get attention and to get clicks on the internet. So you'll see a lot of fake news on different social media like Twitter, Facebook, and a lot of other places too online. So this is a very common word these days. A lot of people are using it, so it's important that you know what it means. We also have the word here, conspiracy theory. So a conspiracy theory is an explanation of an event or situation that is different from the official account. A lot of the times, conspiracy theories are about a government or a business doing something illegal or to harm someone. Okay, so let's think of some conspiracy theories. Some people believe that the moon landing, so when astronauts went to the moon in the 1960s, some people believe the moon landing was fake. This is a popular conspiracy theory. Another conspiracy theory I heard recently is some people believe that Paul McCartney from the Beatles actually died in 1966. And there's a different man who replaced him and who is actually the better musician. So this is a different conspiracy theory. So you'll see a lot of conspiracy theories on the internet. And a lot of people will tell you conspiracy theories during conversations. The last word I wanted to teach you was the word hoax. Hoax. So a hoax is a type of practical joke that is meant to embarrass or hurt people. So some examples of hoaxes are, you'll have these death hoaxes where they'll say a celebrity is dead, but it's not true, it's a joke. Or you might have a hoax like, some people might take a picture of an alien or a monster and tell everyone, look, we have evidence of this monster or alien. But if it's not true, then it's a hoax. It's a joke, a practical joke. So again, fake news, conspiracy theories, and hoaxes are very common on the internet. And so for these things that are not true, what do you say to people when they tell you this untrue information? Well, let's find out in a moment. Okay, so you've heard a fake news story or a conspiracy theory or a hoax. Maybe your aunt or your friend just told you it, and you know it's not true. So what do you say to them? Well, what you can do is you can challenge their argument. So, for example, you can say, so let me get this straight. You're saying, and you can repeat what they said. So let me get this straight. You're saying Paul McCartney died in 1966, okay? And then what you can say is, you can say, that's not true. That's inaccurate. I find that hard to believe. That doesn't make sense. So these are all expressions we use when we're saying, I don't believe you. Now, if we wanted to say something that was a little bit more impolite, we can use the word BS, as in that's BS. BS stands for bullshit. And sometimes we don't want to swear, so we might just say to our friends, that's total BS, or that's BS. You can also say to somebody, that's ridiculous, meaning that's a stupid story, that's ridiculous, it's not true. So these are all examples of common things people say when someone tells them something that they don't believe. So now let's look at some other things we can say when somebody tells us a fake news story. Okay, so another thing you can do when somebody tells you fake news or something that's not true is you can ask them where their source is, or where did they get the information from. So this is the big where question. When we talk about sources or news sources, we're talking about who said it. So for example, maybe the news came from your mom. So maybe that's not a great source. Maybe it came from BBC News, or maybe it came from Wikipedia or Facebook. Or if you're in sciences, maybe it came from a peer-reviewed journal. Maybe it came from Twitter or your aunt or your friends. So it's good to ask somebody where did they get the information from? And then you can think about, okay, is that a good source? And a lot of the times it probably isn't. And you can tell them this, okay? So if somebody tells you, for example, that the moon landing didn't happen and there's a big conspiracy and aliens control the US and Canada and China, what you can say to them is, who told you that? Where's your news source? And if they say, oh, my friend Gary told me that, well, then you can say, that's not a good news source. You can also ask them why or how questions. So for example, why would, I don't know, let's start with how. How would the government cover that up? Or how would rock and roll music cause cancer? Okay, so you can always ask these questions, why and how. And, maybe they have a good explanation, but it's good to ask these questions to find out more about why they think what they think. You can also counter what they're saying, meaning if they say something and you disagree, you can say your opinion. So for example, if somebody told you that Kim Kardashian is really Michael Jackson, you can say, the fact of the matter is Michael Jackson passed away. He is not Kim Kardashian. The truth is, Michael Jackson and Kim Kardashian are not the same person. You can also say, in reality, Michael Jackson is not Kim Kardashian. So these are great expressions you can use when you're trying to tell somebody that what they're saying is incorrect and that what you're saying is the correct belief. Okay, so we've gone over all these different things to say when somebody tells you something that's not true. So let's practice it. Okay, this just in, fake news story. Did you hear? Terrorists have melted Antarctica using a giant laser. Okay, so terrorists have melted Antarctica using a gigantic laser. So that's the news story, which I just made up. It's fake news. So your source is Emma, and this is not a good source for this news story. So what can you say to me if I give you a fake news story like that? Well, maybe you'll say, that's not true. You might say, where did you hear that, Emma? Why would terrorists melt Antarctica with a giant laser? How would terrorists get the laser? Okay, so you might ask these questions. And then you might tell me the truth. The fact of the matter is, Antarctica has not been melted by terrorists. Okay, that is fake news. So thank you for watching. I hope you've learned something maybe about some of these words like fake news, hoax, or conspiracy theory. Also maybe some expressions you can use when you hear something that is untrue. I'd like to invite you to come check out our website at www.engvid.com. There you can actually do a quiz to practice what you learned in this video. I would also like to invite you to subscribe to my channel. You can find a lot of other resources on many different things about English, including English conversation, expressions, vocabulary, work English, and a lot more. So thank you for watching, and until next time, take care.